Being recorded.
Okay, so I'm going to start a little bit of it earlier all over. So Purim observes a miracle that happened way back when. And like its counterpart, like Hanukkah, we start the additional blessing that we do during the tefillah, the Amidah, thanking God for the miracle by saying, I'll come to it. We thank you, O God, for the miraculous liberation, the mighty deliverance, and the heroic victories which you helped our ancestors to achieve in the ancient days of the season. So, some people, I get asked this question. Is Torah relevant today? How is it relevant? Can you make Torah relevant to what goes on today? And I say yes, there is an absolute relevance. It's a continuum. The things that happened in the past did not happen in a vacuum. It's not like when we look back and we're looking at a different people, a different religion, different practices, which, to some extent they were. But yet, the things that happened back then are the same things that are kind of happening today. The story of Purim talks about when the Jews were in exile in the period between the first and second temples. They were in Babylon and Persia. And King Ahasuerus had a new prime minister named Haman, who thought he was pompous, he was egotistical, he thought he was a god. Marched through the streets and expected everybody to bow down to him. Now, today, as we know, if you happen to go to a country like India, for example, somebody bows to you, you bow back to them. It's just courtesy. It's the way it's like our handshake. It's the way they do things. Okay? It's a sign of respect. The problem with Haman is that he fancied himself a god. He wanted people to bow down to him because he felt like he was worthy of worship. And that's the difference. Mordecai, being a good Jew, or he was actually a Benjaminite, that's what he was, from the tribe of Benjamin, refused to do it. One God, that's it. I'm not going to bow down to someone or something that thinks or is denoted as a god. I will not do it. And Haman, of course, with his humongous ego, said no. He got all flustered, he got angry, he went into a rage, and he said, this is the way the Jews are. They don't recognize me for who I think I am, so I need to destroy them. And of course, he drew lots to see what day, that's where we get the word Purim, Purim means lot. He drew lots to see what day he would exterminate all the Jews. There was an ulterior motive behind that as well, because if he killed the Jews, he would get their good. He would pilfer, right? He would get their goods. That was a big part of it. Now, he was able to do that because he went to his king, and King Ahasuerus sealed his request, and therefore made a decree. Yes, you can do it. He finds out later on, King Ahasuerus, that Esther, his new queen, was actually in real life named Hadassah. That was her Hebrew name, and she was actually a Jew. And she said she appealed to him. She fasted for 3 days and then appealed to him. Said, please help my people. Ahasuerus, being in love with her, said, I cannot dissolve the decree. But what I can do is let your people defend themselves. I will allow that. When Haman and his minions and his army rose up against the Jews in Babylonia, they rose up back and they defeated him. Okay, so people say that was a miracle. It happened about 1,600 years ago, somewhere around there. How's that relevant to today? One word. Duh. Look at what's going on. Look at what's been going on in Israel for the last year and a half. Israel was attacked by a surprise attack by an enemy. Not necessarily stronger than Israel, but they were joined by two other armies. The Houthis in Yemen and Hezbollah in Syria. They were financed and supplied, ostensibly, allegedly, because it hasn't been proven yet that I'm aware of, and if it has, please correct me, by such places as Iran, maybe even Russia and China have a hand in that. In addition, you have other countries, other peoples in Europe, the International Criminal Court, South Africa, that are going against Israel. In a sense, in a very real, and then you have protests here in this country. It almost sounds like a world war against the Jews. But as God came through back in that time, and how do we know God came through? Because in the Megillah, which means scroll, the book of Esther, Hashem is not mentioned once. There is a veiled reference, I believe, somewhere in the first chapter, because there's certain initials, abbreviations, that say God was hidden. God was underneath, kind of pulling the strings of the event, of the situation. And that is how we were able to prevail against Haman, his sons, and his army. Today, people say, where is God? Where was God when there was the Holocaust? Where was God when the Arab nations attacked Israel? Where was God on October 7th, 2023? God was hidden. Just like Purim, God was hidden. And just like Purim, God is prevailing. What do you see going on today? Hamas is all but defeated. They are scrambling to do a ceasefire. This is my interpretation. So, because they are in danger of being extinct. Iran, who is allegedly supplying them, has also been very quiet the last few months. In addition, the prevailing sense, the prevailing atmosphere of this country, and I don't want to get political, but it seems like there's been a turn of events over the last 3, 4, 5 months. And that now, these people are being held accountable. A year ago, you saw campus protests. Jews were afraid. Jewish students were afraid to walk on campus. They were taking mezuzot off their door. They were hiding their Jewish paraphernalia. What's happened since then? Has anybody heard the term lawfare? Lawfare is the tactic that our people have used in this country. While Israel is fighting and developing new strategies that even experts, military experts at West Point, are amazed at what they're doing, writing it down for future warfare. In this country, we are suing the leaders of these they're not protests. Free speech is one thing. This is beyond free speech. This is people blocking our fellow Jewish brothers and sisters from going to class. It's people occupying buildings so people can't go to class if they think that the university is in any way, shape, or form sympathetic to Israel. It is people who are demanding that their universities and companies, I don't know about companies, but divest from any Jewish products or any Jewish companies that they might, or any Israeli companies that they're doing business with. Now that would, if Columbia were to do with that, they would lose about $8 billion in their portfolio, somewhere along that. And for other countries, for other colleges too. But people are pointing to our human rights, civil rights laws. They are laws that says no discrimination. And these people are losing the lawsuits. We are winning. Recently, we saw a pro-Palestinian Syrian student on a visa, a green card, a student visa, get arrested, be held in Louisiana to be deported because he sympathizes with a group that this country and most other countries in the world recognize as terrorists. I submit to you that God is behind the scenes helping make all this happen. The tide seems to be turning, and you haven't really seen a whole lot of protests recently. Because what's happening is that these people that are causing the problems, not just marching around with a sign, who cares? Knock yourself out. But when you interfere with someone else's right, the way Haman interfered with the Jews and Babylonians' right to conduct their lives, this is what happens. You get a blowback. You get your karma. And God is seeing to that. Yes, there has been damages. Last week, you saw a lot of orange in honor of the Beavis family. woman and her 2 kids, a 4-year-old and a 9-month-old or a 19-month-old, that were murdered in captivity by this terrorist group. The same group that these people are defending and standing up for. So, I submit to you that God is working behind the scenes. We are standing up for ourselves as our ancestors did in Babylonia, in Shushan, and we will prevail. There is no doubt in my mind we will prevail. And all the hatred directed against us is going to come to the surface, and you will see those people pay in one way or another. The International Criminal Court is getting their comeuppance. And so are a lot of these other countries. And so are a lot of these people. So in a way, we are bringing all of this Jew hating to the fore. It's revealing who these people are. It's not about a cause. It is not about a cause. It is about people that hate, that are finding a way to be on top of the heap and control and force their agenda, a horrible agenda on people. So take heart in the fact that, again, as we did in Shushan years ago, as God has wrought miracles, God will do the same for us today. We continue to be Jews, we continue to practice our Judaism, and we and God together, we will prevail.